Welcome to another live stream, Legends. Well, guys, the market still doesn't look so bad with our recovery since the recent dump, basically that we started the week with. But are we in the clear, or is this bigger move to the downside that's actually looming in the charts right now? I want to take a look at Bitcoin as well as a handful of altcoins. So let me know in the chat if there's any coins specifically that you would like me to take a peek at. Also, let me know what time frame you're generally trading, and I'll see if anything jumps out at me real quickly. With that, let's actually hop over to Bitcoin's weekly chart to get an overall feel for the market. Guys, not much has changed. I know I've done a couple of public live streams this week, and even in my last week's stream. Basically, as long as we're holding above this line here, my yellow line at about 112K approximately, actually more like 111.8, I believe it is. As long as we're staying above that, I mean, we're not actually losing that structure, and it's looking like a bit of a swing fail, right? Just like we had at the top. We got a very little liquidity grab just above the highs there and then got rejected. And right now, as we've been trading the last couple weeks, we've been trying to get below this level, but we're just faking out basically and pushing back above. So we're going to have to see what this weekly close does on Wednesday. Even if that breaks, I mean, at least there's one thing that Bitcoin has done on this trend. It has built a lot of support levels along the way. So even if we're going to start a downtrend, for example, I think there's still a lot of bounce trades to be made. And honestly, Bitcoin for me right now is actually, I have mixed feelings about it. You know, the fact we have this big bearish divergence, the fact that we're just having a hard time getting a nice excited breakout, even though we're setting slightly higher highs on the trend like this, we're having a hard time actually breaking out. So a little bit of weakness there. And just, I think the clock is ticking where eventually this run is going to come to an end. So, I mean, we're going to have to see. But that being said, guys, as I say that, I know that's a bit of a warning, but I'm not actually bearish at this point. I'm just kind of looking at things realistically and just kind of keeping my wits about me and just ready for anything, because the market does not give a shit about how bullish I am right now. And that being said, even though I am not bearish at this point, I'm actually, and I know I've been saying this for over a month now at this point, basically since Bitcoin was down here around even between 105 and 110,000 basically. I was saying that I was actually far more bullish on altcoins at that point, and that still stands true. So I think even if Bitcoin does just form some sort of a big range like this, I think that would be a very good time for altcoins to make a very large move. Basically, even though, like I was just saying, I mean, even though I'm very bullish on altcoins at this phase of the cycle, because even if Bitcoin's topped, I still think that they get that one very large push where, you know, everyone makes tons of money. We get that actual retail FOMO happen, which I don't think we've really had this cycle yet. So I would think that, you know, even if Bitcoin is topped, that we would still very likely get that. But, yeah, that being said, I mean, if Bitcoin ends up sending new highs, then at that point we can just bump up a higher low basically. At this point, I don't want to move up this green trend line here to this being a confirmed higher low, just because we haven't actually broke this high yet. Now, that being said, very micro analyzing here, and especially you could zoom into lower time frames. We did have this high with this slightly higher high, and even though that was a swing fail liquidity grab, we did technically drop below that higher low that's between the two. It's a little bit messy because it's wicks, it's not candle body closes, so I mean, it's definitely not as strong or as bearish as it could be at this point. And again, even if this is a break of structure or anything, the fact that we're just wicking below at this point still doesn't strike me as the market's in a terrified place or anything like that. Yeah, pullbacks are very natural. Wouldn't be surprised to see some lower price action in the near future. But that being said, I think altcoins are still in a very good place. Specifically Solana, you guys. Solana, I mean, I've been very bullish on this for a while. I've been constantly just taking little scalps. The MDX Trendmaster, when we get those nice trends going with that indicator where we start printing higher sell signals and higher buy signals, those have been very, very nice trade setups as far as long opportunities for scalps, right? Taking profits along the way, because you got to trade it for what it is, right? I'm not taking one of these buy signals on a 5-minute and treating it like a 4-hour position. I am taking profits at least within the first hour. I'm starting to downsize my position in general, and then hoping that some of it runs, basically. But with Solana, the reason why it's been on my radar is basically because, just like I've been saying on these streams for over a month now, I think since we were basically down around 170, I was saying that, you know, to me, the fact that Bitcoin has broke its all-time highs, and the fact that Ethereum has been testing its all-time highs recently, I see no reason why Solana wouldn't at least test its macro resistance, which for me starts around 250 US dollars. Actually about 253, but I'm calling it 250. And the 886 would be around 275 approximately. So the fact that we still aren't up at that level, I really think that even if things are going to turn bearish, and I really don't think we're at that stage yet, but if things are going to turn bearish, I still have a feeling that Solana would end up coming up and at least testing that 250 level. So that's why I've been very interested with just looking for those scalps on Solana specifically and hoping to catch a running position, because yeah, with Ethereum, it's great that it tested all-time highs, and I do think that it will break out. However, at this time, it got rejected off its after testing its all-time highs, whereas to me, Solana just looks like it has so much room to go to the upside before it tests any serious resistance. And I mean, even if this little consolidation here, I mean, this was a higher high. We got a slightly higher high. That confirms a higher low. Another higher high, a higher low. Another higher high, a higher low. So we're still staircasing higher, even when you really zoom in and analyze even the 4-hour like that. It's still got a very strong trend. Even with the pullback that we had at the start of the week, like nothing, there was no serious break in structure or anything. We never lost our high or low on the trend. The trend master indicator still printing higher sell signals and higher buy signals at this point and pushing us towards that 250 level. So for me, Solana's just been basically my coin of choice lately when looking at longing pullbacks. And that's, again, not to say that those pullbacks won't happen. I'm not saying that, you know, nobody should short or anything like that. It's just like, if you have your criteria that's met, go for it. But me at this point, I just don't really have that much interest in shorting the market right now. If I was to short anything right now, honestly, I think it would be Bitcoin. I understand that altcoins, if Bitcoin ends up crashing, altcoins will likely follow it and they will get hammered as well. But I'm more interested in looking for when Bitcoin starts finding support, looking at what the altcoins are doing instead, because the altcoins are reacting much more aggressively than Bitcoin is. And especially, like I keep saying, at this stage of the cycle where I think altcoins will get their big push yet, that's why I'm just more interested in playing something like Solana at this point. Even Ethereum a little bit, Hype a little bit as well, because I mean, Hype is another one. Yeah, it's pulling back a little bit, but it's still been in price discovery technically. We still are setting... I'm actually going to change this. I don't know why that's there, to be honest. That just looks like a random line. Maybe it was from a different buy signal or whatever, but the actual structure that I'm looking at was, this was our all-time high. And we did get this little swing fail, right? So it makes sense that we're seeing a little bit of a rejection, but that's still bullish structure for me. We still did test higher, and that would confirm this as our higher low. So I'm not saying we have to pull back to these levels, but if I was looking for a range, I would be pulling my fibs something like this, just for that basic structure. That's just a typical Stuber fib on the 4-hour of my current range. That's basically what I would be looking at. I personally don't think we're going to pull back all the way to these levels, but if we do, it's still very healthy in my opinion. I would not be too worried about this support level where most likely people would start shorting into support. And even if they're correct, it's just not something I would be interested in, because I would rather be a buyer at support. I'd rather be a seller at resistance. So Hype, I'm actually in no positions right now. My positions right now, like Bitcoin, I still have a bit of my long running, which was basically just taken. I was looking at this as a falling wedge. I think that was Monday night, actually. Just basically playing the retest. And then when we ended up breaking above, I was like, hey, you know what? Before I went to bed, I set my stop loss to break even, and it just ended up continuing to climb. So that was one of those times I was looking at it as more of a scalp. I was taking profits. Like, I closed half my position before I went to bed that night because we ended up testing back up to a Stuber fib here, pulling off this resistance here. So I was looking at it as a scalp, as I usually do with new positions, but from there I just let the rest run. So I still have a chunk of that position. I have about 40% left at this point on my Bitcoin long. Solana still got a long from this signal back here, which was, I believe that was yesterday. Was that yeah, that was yesterday. But now, yeah, we're still seeing right now on the 5-minute for Solana, still seeing those higher buy signals, still seeing higher sell signals, trying to hold that support of the trend right now. But even when we got that higher buy signal, so this is one of those ways where I like to scalp things like this. Like, I did take a new scalp off this with Solana as well, but I took my profits very quickly on it because I still have a running position. I was just looking at a different scalp basically. But same thing, higher buy signal on the Trendmaster indicator, came back and we were just kind of testing along it for several candles there. So I just took a bit of a long and just scaled out on the way up, just treating it like a scalp. And again, I still have a position from down here if it ends up continuing to climb to the upside. So nothing to worry about there. Jupiter, I took this long during actually a public live stream I did on Monday, but someone had requested me to look at Jupiter, and basically I saw that we were right in my swing fail pocket, right between the 1 and the 115, and I said, you know what, just based on risk reward alone and the fact that we're consolidating in the middle of that range, not losing the 118, that was such a good risk reward that I was interested in playing that long, because even getting up to the 214 here, I mean, that's over a 7-to-1 risk reward, right? So trading's not about winning every single setup. It's about winning. Your winners are significantly larger than your losses, right? And that's really the whole theory behind playing Stuber fibs, you guys, is just, it's not that it's some magical sequence or anything like that. It's really just teaching you to look at structure for like hype, for example. Like I said, the fact that we broke above the highs here, I'm sure a lot of people were longing the shit out of this, looking for that breakout because, hey, the resistance has been broken, it's time to long, right? When in reality, I would say that yes, this means to look for longs, the fact that we set a higher high. But temporarily, it's very likely we pull back, right? Because if this was any other time frame, I mean, yeah, it's a 4-hour. If this was a 5-minute, I wouldn't be interested in longing it until down here, just based on Fibonacci pull. And I mean, not to say there's not other reasons to take longs in between or anything like that. But the main reason for pulling Stuber fibs like this is just to help you avoid FOMOing into breakouts, because more often than not, after you break structure, you sweep the lows, you break the highs, whatever, so often you get that retest. So even if the people here were correct that, hey, this is a bullish signal, that doesn't necessarily mean hit that buy button right now. It means start looking for that opportunity, but pullbacks are very natural. And that's what Fibonacci's in general are so great for, right? They just help us realize that the market pulls back to those levels very often. And I would rather be looking for those setups where your invalidation is significantly closer to your entry, rather than, now I understand a lot of people who would buy into something like this would probably have their stop loss, something like this, or even right below this, who knows. But when you're actually looking at the structure, and the invalidation would actually be way down here for that range. So the risk reward on buying way up here, if you're willing to hold for proper structure way to down there, that's a massive loss, right? That's where those pullbacks are very natural, and why I'd rather play those. But again, it totally depends on the strategy, because, someone else may have been more interested in shorting that, which obviously it would be playing out because it's a bit of a swing fail. It just totally depends on what strategy you're looking for. But Stuber fibs on their own is just basically a way to not FOMO into breakouts, basically. I want to see what the trend master on the 4-hour for hype is still printing high. Well, we actually have mixed signals here. We printed a lower sell signal, higher buy signal. So a little bit of mixed signals, not a confident trend there. But that being said, I wouldn't say this has been broken yet by any means. Basically, I would be looking. So that's actually where my line was at when I started this stream. That was based off of this higher buy signal on the 4-hour, because this is where we pivoted from before getting that buy signal. So basically, as long as we stay above that level, I would remain bullish on this 4-hour trend. And again, even if we did pull back a little bit further and hit a Stuber fib, for example, or even a little bit lower and get a liquidity grab like this and reclaim that level, for example, I would be so interested in longing something like that at that point. But I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if that happens, that's kind of what my game plan would be. Bitcoin on the 4-hour, I still have my concerns about this, you guys. Basically, with the trend master, once again, we've actually lost this trend of higher buy signals, because see, back here we had this little switch where we went significantly higher buy signal, significantly higher sell signal first, followed by the buy. Very nice signal there, but at this point, I mean, you would obviously be taking profits on the way up because that was a massive move after holding this support level. But we have lost that pivotal point that we had before this buy signal, and we are still technically holding this sell signal as resistance. It's not a lower sell yet, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw something like a lower buy signal come into play, followed by a lower sell. If that happens, I would have some very serious concerns about Bitcoin's trend, at least for the midterm. But so far, we don't have that. So if we do get some sort of a bounce right now, I would start being very cautious around 120,000, just because we would be getting up closer to that Stuber fib on a more macro scale again. I think it's very possible that we would see some sort of a rejection, because again, just like losing this buy signal, the higher buy signal, we would also be losing this type of structure where we had our high, we had a higher high, and that would mean that this was our confirmed higher low, that same level, and we've lost that, right? So it would be very natural to get a bounce of some kind, but as far as a Stuber fib setup, that would be a textbook short opportunity for that type of a setup. Depending how I feel on the market, I mean, I don't know. I would want to see something on shorter time frames in that territory before I would be scaling into a short in something like that. I don't have blind shorts set up there or anything like that. There's still a lot of time between now and then if it's even going to happen. But yeah, I have my concerns about the midterm trend so far. If we do end up even going a little bit higher, let's say that the Stuber fib doesn't end up nuking us, but we, let's say, get a third touch point on this rising trend line here, which would also line up with a swing fail because it would be between our 1 and our 115 pocket. I would have my concerns up there, and I would be looking for short opportunities up there at that point, just because, again, the risk reward would be so tight. But if we get an actual breakout and show no signs of weakness in this pocket right here or here, then I'd have no interest in shorting it until that starts to show its face, basically. Ethereum I wanted to take a peek at. So a couple different things here. One, Ethereum unfortunately never did quite get down to my Stuber territory down here. We ended up finding support a little bit quicker off this block here, which is actually the level which pushed us past this resistance here. So nice to see that we ended up holding that as support so far. I still would have liked a little bit deeper of a pullback there so that I would have hit some of my laddered entries I had, but whatever, never got into that. So I'm actually in nothing on Ethereum at this time. At this point, if we did end up pulling back to this level, I would kind of want to see how we react both to the Stuber fib pocket as well as swing fail territory, because I would love to see some sort of a liquidity grab and reclaiming that very quickly. That would be opportunity for a nice tight stop loss setup, but you're going to have to see what happens with that. The trend master still holding higher sell signals and higher buy signals. We're having a hard time holding this pink line, this moving average, as support. Having a hard time holding it, but we haven't seen a lower buy signal, a lower sell signal, anything suggesting that the trend master is actually shifting directions at this point. We haven't seen anything warning us on the 4 hour yet. Crow. Crow has been on an absolute moon mission. The Trump media has apparently announced that they will, what was it? They were going to add $6.42 billion of Crow to their treasury, I believe I read. And yeah, it's been going absolutely nuts since then. Just looking for random places because I was asked about taking profit levels on Crow. So I'm just going to map out some random trend lines looking for where previous cycles have topped and that sort of thing. You know, if this trend line extended is going to be any kind of target, and I know not everyone loves diagonal trend lines, and I would never place a trade just solely on that, but as far as take profit levels, I would definitely consider that for a level. Not so much an entry of a short or anything, but I would be looking at taking profits there if we end up getting there. And that would kind of be in the 70 to 75 cent range if we end up climbing there. I'm also going to guess that that would line up with something very similar. Well, actually, Stuberfib would be a little bit higher yet. So maybe we blast right through that diagonal resistance. I would only actually consider it valid if we got a third touch point and then broke out. That would be beautiful to see if we did something like this. Get a third exact touch point. I'm pretty picky when it comes to trend line breakout trading. But if we had 3 exact touch points like that with rejections, followed by reclaiming it and flipping it into support, I think that would be an absolutely massive sign for Crow. At this point, it's way too early to assume that that's going to happen. But what else can we find here? If I were to look for, again, I'm just looking for random trend lines first. With multiple touch points, we actually broke above that one, so good to see there. And yeah, like I said, the fibs are just, were we ever lower than that? No, so I would actually still be pulling a fib, something like that, I think. So, I mean, realistically, Crow could go significantly higher. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not YOLOing longs into it or anything. I was really debating starting to scalp it and hope for a runner. It's obviously on an absolute moon mission. But I think it can go higher. Obviously, it might see some pullbacks and stuff, but we don't have a ton of market structure at this point. Right? Like, the thing is, since breaking this level right here, notice that we had a straight drop here, and we're basically filling that gap at this point. So I guess there is a little bit of resistance back here, but other than that, it's pretty much smooth sailing to all-time highs. Crow doesn't look too bad to me at this point. That's a huge breakout. What did that even end up pumping the last few days? Like 70% or something? 170%. Holy crap. Yeah, that thing's on an absolute moon mission, you guys. Let's Crow. Sorry, just catching up on the chat a little bit here. Plumbus, once Sol tops again, meme coin shitters will be the play. It'll be glorious. Man, yeah, meme coins, honestly, meme coins have been very fun lately. Since April, my meme coin account is up almost 20x just from spot trading. They are so volatile, and a lot of low cap memers have been absolutely crushing it. So buying and selling them has been actually more profitable than leverage trading even for the last couple of months for me. But that being said, know what I'm actually more excited for with meme coins is when we actually enter a bear market. Because even in a bull market, now that the altcoin market is so diluted that you still have to find good ones to, make good money by holding them at this point, because everyone's scared to hold anything for more than a few hours. But On the opposite side of things, in the bear market, we know all the meme coins are getting hammered into the ground. So it'll basically be, in my opinion, when it comes bear market time, it'll be a YOLO shorts into meme coins, into anything, looking at resistance retests, any breaks of structure. I think shorting meme coins is going to be so fun in the bear market. Be similar to playing a bull market. Ethereum is definitely going higher, but I do agree lower first than 5.6 or 5.8k with Ethereum, you say? Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time until we end up breaking above 5k. But we'll have to see. Have to see what the charts say, because at this point, I mean, we got rejected at all-time highs, so we need to change some structure. Maybe the 1 hour, if we zoom in, technically we broke some microstructure there, but yeah, the 1 hour is still looking a little weak, to be honest. We have this lower sell signal on the hourly. I'm not interested in shorting, but it does look like a little bit of weakness to me at this point. I think we can go a little bit lower. We'll have to see. Crow 4 hour. I want to zoom in a little bit on our buddy Crow here. Trendmaster still looking like good support around 24 cents. Obviously, so guys, this is another thing, right? I talk about this all the time when you start to notice these signals changing directions like this. Like as soon as the Trendmaster indicator printed a very clear higher sell signal followed by a higher buy signal, and then another one, right? Another significantly higher sell signal, another higher buy signal. I mean, these were such nice warnings. On the 4 hour and on the daily, when you see those signals, when they start to form a trend like that, it can be such a strong indication as what's about to happen with the trend. It usually takes a while, because I mean, look at how long this took to play out, right? Since we first got it to where it really blasted off. 3 weeks, right? We basically traded sideways for 3 weeks with Crow after that signal, but eventually it just absolutely took off. A good another one that was similar to that, I was talking about it with Troll a couple months ago. The Trendmaster, we eventually ended up printing a very slightly higher sell signal here, followed by a higher buy signal. And again, it took a while, but eventually we ended up just absolutely mooning with that coin. Now, I'm not saying that that's typical, you might not be typically getting a 20x, for example. But that's all, those are signals that I love using the Trendmaster for, especially on the 4 hour and the daily. And just in general, even with scalping, right? I mean, I was talking about the higher sells, the higher buys. Same with the lower sells, because the thing is, guys, I know a lot of people only use indicators thinking, how can I get into more positions? I need to be in more positions to make more money. Another thing that, and quite honestly, I probably even prefer indicators for warnings. When you should be looking at dialing back your positions, when you should start taking profits. We have something like this and we start climbing to the upside because we have higher trending signals like that. Well, if they start trending to the downside, I need to consider taking some more profits off the table. Like at this point, we don't, right? We have a sell signal, yes, but it's a significantly higher sell signal. So if anything, I'm hoping a higher buy comes into play. But if we do something where, for example, we end up testing the sell signal, we end up dropping, Troll ends up just absolutely nuking, we end up getting a higher buy signal, but then we end up getting a lower sell signal, for example. I would take that as a very strong warning, and I would be looking at scaling out of my position a little bit, locking in some more profits and that sort of thing, just because that's a very strong indication that the trend master is showing a warning that the signals are changing trends, right? So something to consider there. And that's not just the Trendmaster indicator. That's so many different indicators that I look at the exact same. It's not so much taking each individual signal of an indicator, but seeing also what the price is doing when you are setting those new signals. Are bullish signals coming in as the price is going higher, or are we trending to the downside with bullish signals? Those are also things to pay attention to, rather than just YOLOing into positions with indicators, basically. Crow should be renamed Sloth. Yeah, if Ethereum can stay above 4K, it's a mega buy area at 3.7 to 3.8. Yeah, like at this point, my mega buy box for Ethereum goes down to about 3,900, 3,920 approximately. And that would basically be, looking at pulling a fib from there. And that green box is basically from between my 1 and my 115. So that would be my swing fail box, basically. Here's a little bit lower. Yeah, I mean, very possible too, right? We could always go a little bit lower. I would have concerns if we drop the 115. Quite often that means that we're going to go significantly further. However, that being said, if we go a little bit lower, but then we end up breaking some sort of structure like that, right? Like if we have a low and a lower low, okay, well, we broke that. We invalidated that Stuber setup. We invalidated the 115. However, we ended up breaking a downtrend, right? So in that sort of a case, I would be willing to get back in, even if we went a little bit lower. But ideally, the perfect scenario for me would be doing something like, actually, I would like to see a bounce off this, but if we came back a little bit lower and basically tested the 115 perfectly and did something like that, I think that would be beautiful. Especially if you can see candle bodies closing right near the 115. That's one of those opportunities where just for the risk reward setup alone, for how small of a loss that would be compared to the potential gains if this does turn into a reversal hitting the other targets, on that alone, I would be looking at taking a long down here, as long as a candle never just nuked right through it, right? As long as you started closing a couple candles along here, I would absolutely be considering something like that. And a perfect example is my Jupiter trade, right? The one that I currently still have half running on is for that exact reason. I could have got in a little bit lower, but at the end of the day, a 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 risk reward, I mean, I'll take it. That's a beautiful trade right there. Another meme coin, I've been talking about this one quite a bit, it is looking a little bit weak. I'll give it that. However, Cat with Mask, it is currently testing basically, well, it already did, the first big 4-hour Stuber fib support in its existence. And it also got its first higher sell signal followed by a higher buy signal on the 4-hour chart. And like I already showed, I mean, I showed that on Crow. It took 3 weeks for something like that to play out. At this point, I'm still looking at this as a potentially very bullish setup. Obviously, meme coins are dangerous. Low cap coins, I mean, this thing has about a $9 million market cap, I'm pretty sure. But as far as the technicals go, I really like to see this with the MDX Trendmaster indicator, and I love to see that we got a little bounce off the 786 there. Do I think Whiff could make a mighty comeback? Let's check. I'm looking at Cat with Mask. Let's check the OG Whiff. This is a chart I have not looked at in a very long time. Apparently I mapped something out at some point though. Looks like we never did come back down to those levels that I had mapped out. I assume it was something like that. Yeah, that explains that purple box there. And I'm assuming... oh, this one must have been from a shorter time frame or something like that. Do I think it can make a comeback? I mean, to be honest, yeah, I think it could. I think it strongly depends what this market cycle does from here, because you know, it wasn't just a random pump and dump. This one had a lot of attention. It did have a very high market cap for a sustained amount of time, but yeah, obviously eventually it dumped off a cliff. But it's not looking like the structure's so bad at this point. Like, we broke the downtrend that it had, right? It had a very obvious downtrend. We ended up breaking that resistance here. So if we just look at this as basically low, lower low, confirmed lower high, broke that, end up, yeah, so far it's looking okay. My biggest concern with this chart right now is I really wish that this high would have went a little bit higher. I wish it would have went something like that, because at that point I could have pulled a new bullish Stuber from right here, something like that. Now, to be fair, we are currently testing a 786 and it seems like it's respecting it so far. The only problem is we don't have that added confirmation of, hey, at least we have a, you know, it would be nice to have a higher high on the trend, because then we'd have bullish momentum going with this pullback as well. I would feel a lot better about this support in that case. Still not necessarily the end of the world. I mean, it's still a 786 pullback. If the bulls are ready to step back in, fantastic. Let's see if the Trendmaster says anything. So we have higher buy signals and higher sell signals, but it is currently a sell. I'd feel quite good about this if we can break above this and end up getting a higher buy signal again, because then the signals will be matching up basically. I would love to see that from an indicator perspective. But yeah, it's not like it looks like a rug pull, right? I mean, meme coins are very volatile at the best of times, so the fact that it probably dumped 80, 90%, whatever, I don't think that's, yeah, so basically a full-on bear market very quickly. But in the meme space, that's just so common that I know nothing about if the community is still active on social media, which is obviously a huge part of meme coins in general. Without the community, they're nothing basically. So yeah, I know nothing about this coin, but from a technical perspective, I love that it did break this little downtrend, right? What's the 4 hour looking like on this bad boy? So the 4 hour we did, well, I guess that would have been, what, a few days ago? Basically almost a week ago. We got a lower sell signal on the 4 hour, so I would really want to see that invalidated. It doesn't look great, but is a recovery possible? Yeah. Nothing crazy bullish jumping out at me other than the fact that, you know, again, just the fact that we broke a micro downtrend, but that can really, I mean, technically we could say we broke that uptrend already because we lost this level. So if we want to really analyze what's been happening here, so when we broke that downtrend, we started setting higher highs and higher lows, and then we ended up losing that micro higher low. And then what happens if you pull a fib from there? Notice we get that Stuber fib rejection. The good thing about this is, obviously, since that was an opposite 786 for the support where we're currently trying to hold support, that's obviously the 214 bearish target, right? So even though there was a bearish setup there, it may have already played out. Well, it did already play out, but that may be all it had in the tank. So there's technically bearish structure there, but the move may have already happened. So if the market's going to recover nicely and meme coins are going to get stupid and go parabolic and all that sort of good stuff, I assume that whiff would kind of be the same. But meme coins are a dangerous game. They're very volatile. You know, just remember when you are playing meme coins, when you're playing small cap coins, especially when they have low volume and stuff like that. You guys, like, I know there's a few coins specifically that people get very upset about in this group, and that's fair, but understand that basically anytime you're playing a low cap coin, you have to understand that it's such a gamble. That's basically all there is to it. When you're looking at low cap coins or you're looking at meme coins, it's basically the casino of crypto. Even if something has good fundamentals, but if the advertising isn't there, or the community isn't there, or it's just not being promoted and not generating any trade volume or anything, then fundamentals can only go so far. Like Trio, yes. That's basically what I'm referring to. I know that's a touchy subject around here, but, and I'm the same, right? I mean, yeah, I sold some when it went for its initial pump, because I always do, you know, if something's going up, you know, 3, 4, 5x or whatever, I like to take my initials off the table rather than be greedy. But, you know, the rest of my bag got hammered just like everyone else's. I mean, let's take a look at Trio. Sorry if I cause anyone any PTSD here. But it's still trending to the downside. Like, I mean, I sold most of my bag a long time ago because this thing was trending so aggressively to the downside. And again, using the trend master as a reasoning for that, right? It doesn't matter how many people are telling me that fundamentals are good, or, you know, whoever thinks that this is going to do well, anything like that, it still could, sure. However, that being said, the Trendmaster, one of the indicators that we all have access to here, started printing lower sell signals, and I mean, we were retesting that closer to $3, right? So yeah, it hurts when you have a bag go like this, but it's a low cap coin. It has tiny trade volume. I mean, and it just keeps printing lower sell signals. So unfortunately, until that trend breaks, it looks like shit. Bitcoin dominance, on a positive note here, love to see that the Bitcoin dominance is trying to drop again, trying to flip a little bit on the 4 hour here. I want to see what the trend master, yeah, notice. So same thing with Bitcoin dominance, right? We're seeing lower sell signal and a lower buy signal, or even looking at when we lost that trend of higher buy signals, right? Buy signal, higher buy signal, higher buy signal. When we lose that, look what happened. We just dumped off a cliff and we printed a lower buy signal, lower sell signal, and absolutely nuking from there. Now, lucky for us, this chart's actually very bullish for the market. The fact that Bitcoin dominance is dropping off a cliff like that, that's very bullish, especially for our altcoins. So the fact that we are seeing a bit of a rejection here, even if we bounce a little higher and got this extended trend line, basically, you can see I mapped this out yesterday just as something to watch for. But, you know, the sooner that this dumps off a cliff, the better. And just to zoom things out, I mean, it's already broke a couple of dirty trend lines. I mean, on the 4 hour, I was talking about this one. Basically, when we were back here in July, I was warning that if we end up dropping this, altcoins are going to have very nice moves. And that's basically when Ethereum started mega outperforming Bitcoin. Actually, it started back in April or so. I think it started around... somewhere back here is where Ethereum really started taking off. But like the meme coins, for example, and just altcoins in general have been performing very well compared to Bitcoin recently. And, you know, a big part of that is Bitcoin dominance dropping off. We dropped that 4 hour trend line. That was a very clean trend line. If we zoom out even further, so you can even see this trend line down here. I'm just going to show where it basically ended up at. We got this touch point here and then flip that support into resistance. Let's zoom way out to the daily, and that's actually this trend line here, a much larger trend line, and flipping that support into resistance. So we're just dropping major structure on this chart. And look where it started. I pulled this fib from back in 2020, 2021. So this chart, this fib pull is about 4.5 years of data or something like that. Between 4 and 5 years of data. I mean, that is a lot of data right there. And to see us come up to this 786, and again, just showing that it doesn't really matter what the trading pair is, what time frame you're looking at. You know, market structure does market structure things. And to see the Bitcoin dominance end up testing the 786 like this in a 5-year period and end up starting losing diagonal structure like this, I mean, I still think there's a huge move for this. We're not even at the 0.5 fib yet. Even if we get a bounce there, I think it's very likely that Bitcoin dominance drops to that 214 fib, just like a typical Stuber fib setup, if not even further. So I think that the altcoins, I think they're just getting fired up. I don't know. I really have a gut feeling about that. I could be very wrong. Obviously, you know, still take profits. Don't just totally bank on everything going straight past the moon and straight to Mars kind of a thing. Understand that when you're in good positions, take profits, downsize your risk, downsize your positions, do all that sort of good stuff, the good boring risk management kind of stuff. Make sure you're still doing that. But yeah, I personally have a very good feeling about the altcoins still at this point. Troll trying to get a nice little bounce here. Yeah, Jupiter's still moving nicely there. That was a nice trade. Crow still looking good. Let's try and zoom in on Crow a little bit. The 1 hour, that's a bit of a concern to me. That's on the 1 hour. That's the first time of any sort of structure break to me. Again, it is micro analyzing because this was just wicks, but we ended up dropping that. So it's very possible that we end up flipping this into a little bit of resistance, which we see the indicator lining up with my Stuber fib pocket there. I have no interest in shorting Crow at this point, especially the fact that, you know, even after dropping that little structure, we came right back to this buy trend on the 1 hour, and the longer time frames just look even better. But yeah, there could be a little pullback there is all. Hype 5 minute, what are we looking at? So this is one of those times as well, right? With hype, notice we got a slightly lower sell signal here. That was a nice warning from the MDX Trendmaster. Same with here, right? Lower sell signal, just a bit of a warning there that things might be trending to the downside a little bit. Even the first one, right? This is basically where we ended up flipping it, right? Because we had a higher sell signal, higher buy signal, higher sell signal, higher buy signal, lower sell signal. Big warning there that things may be shifting, and we've been printing lower sell signals ever since getting that swing fail on hype. So again, using the indicators for risk management more than anything. So I'm not taking a long on hype yet, just because it still looks like there's a bit of a short-term trend to the downside here. Whereas Solana still looks significantly better than hype at this point. So I was just going back through the chat here and just seeing there's been a few requests. All right, let's start checking some of these requests for you guys. First, OKB. They burnt a ton of supply, pumped major with the buyback. Not sure which way it was done. Maybe they bought, then burnt massive amount of supply. One to watch for another pump, in my opinion, after it bases out. DOT as well. I will take a look at DOT as well. Okay, let's start with OKB. Oh, that is quite the pump. Just a quick 500% there. So that never did get the 4-hour higher buy signals and higher sell signals. However, another good signal to pay attention to would have been when we lost the lower sell signals, right? Because we lower sell signal, lower sell signal, lower sell signal. So this is where we would have had our last pivot for the sell signals. Right after we broke that, that would be a beautiful breakout indication that we're breaking that lower trending sell signals, right? Obviously, I didn't catch this. I wasn't watching this. I've never heard of this. I knew nothing about it. But yeah, that is a massive pump. Concerns about this at this point on the 4-hour would be we obviously lost this level. Right, if I'm just very micro analyzing, but this would have been our last little pause where we set a high and then higher high. This was all green candles here. So let's just make a little box with our last red support where we basically found support and moon from there. Notice that we ended up dropping that and even flipping it to perfect resistance at this point. So I do have a bit of concern with that. Even if we end up bouncing, understand that we have broke structure bearishly there, so there is potential for a Stuber fib rejection, something like this. If we end up reclaiming that, if that makes sense. As far as bullish plays, what's the trend master saying? So we still technically have this buy trend. We haven't flipped to a sell yet or anything, but yeah, there's a couple signs of weakness, but that's a massive trend. I mean, I can't argue with that. That is a massive uptrend. But yeah, I'd be a little bit nervous FOMOing into it is all. Dot, I said I would look at. Absolutely. Because I've also been thinking recently that DOT looks like it could eventually make a move here. The last... Oh, this isn't a very old chart, but whatever. We'll just look at this anyways. Really, we don't need the all-time highs and stuff like that because we have no idea if we'll end up going that high again. But let's just look at the current market structure we have. Notice that we did set a lower low there. We did reclaim it very quickly. So if you're looking more for swing fails type of a thing, that would be one of those perfect situations where you could have bought this whole level here as we reclaimed that level. But the thing to remember with that is it was still a lower low, right? So we're still in a downtrend. Even if you get a little bounce, make sure you're taking profits on that kind of a thing. Especially if you're using leverage, if you're comfortable with a spot bag, whatever. What do we got here? If we're looking for resistance, we could have a fib pulse, something like that. So watch out for resistance starting around 488, 489, somewhere in there. Sorry, let me just map that out. Make it purple so we know it's a Stuber. Remove this to clean things up a little bit. Get the trend master back out there. So this would be one of those things, if we get up to that Stuber fib, I might not care about that resistance quite as much because we would be breaking the downtrend of sell signals with the trend master, right? We've been printing lower sell signal, right? Because if we... As we do that, so notice with this sell signal, for example, lower sell signal. Okay, well, here's where we pivoted from. Looking for short opportunities on any kind of a bounce, basically, as long as you don't reclaim this level. And boom, we ended up getting another little rejection. But it's starting to coil up pretty tight. I would not be too surprised to see us get some sort of a pump, invalidate this. And then I think DOT could... I agree with you. I think DOT could make moves. I would not be surprised if that was one of the things that all of a sudden you hear Trump media using for a treasury, or throwing some into a treasury, whatever. I really wouldn't be too surprised. It seems like it's a lot of those more major altcoins from, like, you know, last cycle, for example, like Crow, perfect example right there. You know, Ethereum's just always kind of been a big one. So I mean, DOT, it kind of fits the profile for me that, you know, it had a very nice cycle. Like last cycle obviously did huge numbers. Would not be surprised to see this get some sort of a breakout, print higher buy signal, and off to the races. If it does print a higher sell and a higher buy, I would be considering looking at playing longs on DOT, as well as just accumulating some. I don't have any right now, but I would consider it in that case. Beam, I will check Beam. This is a daily chart. Oh, that's an interesting looking chart. Those are some fat candles. I can't really say much about this chart other than, yeah, we're obviously at a support level. I'd rather be buying support than, you know, panic selling at that point. I know nothing about it, but it's obviously consolidating in a very tight range at this point. Let's look at the 4 hour, see if there's anything more obvious. So one thing I like about this was our low, and we obviously set a lower low there. That means on the trend, this was our lower high because it was the highest point between the two. And we broke that, right? So the easy Stuber fib play, it already happened. I can just see it right now. But we obviously got our bullish signal right there. And then, what do you know? We end up pulling back into that fib pocket. We're currently there right now, which I love that. We're obviously at a strong support level. My only concern with that is that it's already played out once, right? We came right from the 886 up to the 0.5 fib up to the 214. So that entire Stuber fib did play out already. I much prefer them on the first play because they are so likely to get tested at least once in a case like that. So yes, support is still support until it's broken, but we just have to understand that it's a little riskier this time because we never did get our opportunity to take those profits like we did last time. Because what kind of a move was that off the 886? So let's say you're laddering into this like a Stuber fib, so your average entry is right in the middle of the pocket. I mean, that was a 40% move to the upside. So you could have absolutely been taking profit along the way on something like that. And then you'd just have either be able to buy back more at this level on this test, or just be a little relaxed because, you know, you've already taken some position or some profits off the position. And then if it ends up nuking or whatever, it hurts a little bit less because you did do the responsible thing in that case. So yeah, it's still at support. It doesn't look bad by any means. It's just that the easy play already happened is all. That sell signal's basically a double top sell. Still have lower buy signals at this point. So the trend master not doing us any favors, but the structure honestly doesn't look so bad to me. IOTA, there's a oldie. Haven't looked at that one in ages. Oh, but I apparently did look at it at some point, and we did get our Stuber fib played out. That very well may have been you who got me to look at it a week or two ago, Plumbus. But yeah, obviously, same thing. If we go from the middle of our fib pocket to the 214 fib, we got a nice 60% pump off that support. So I don't remember when I mapped this out or anything, but obviously in one of these streams. And yeah, again, it doesn't look bad by any means, but the easy play obviously already happened. Mixed signals on the trend master. We got lower printing sell signals, higher printing buy signals. So a bit of mixed signals there. AI charting tools setting lower highs, lower lows. Actually, I want to check the Bollinger Bands. The Bollinger Bands look like they're squeezing. If these would split right apart, it would be a nice sign that volatility is incoming. Don't have that yet, but that is one that I'd be interested in watching just as further confirmation, you know, just since we've already tested that support and it's played out once already. I would love some sort of a confirmation with another breakout play or something. You know, much like what we got back here. That's a perfect example where the bands started splitting apart, telling us that volatility was going to be increasing, and then we got a daily, or a 4-hour rather, candle close above the range, just hinting at us that, you know, the volatility was going to be moving to the upside, basically. So I would love to see that happen again. That would be something to watch for on the 4-hour, in my opinion. Speaking of that, I want to check the Bollinger Bands on some other indicators, or on some other pairs now. Things like Troll that I feel like are going to make big moves eventually. So Bollinger Bands not expanding or anything, so nothing new there. Ooh, Mask White might be a nice one to watch for that, actually. If these bands really split apart on Cat with Mask, I will consider buying a significantly larger position if it looks like it's going to get a 4-hour close above the Bollinger Bands with them spreading apart like that. I'd be loading up my position a little bit more. Jupiter, did it end up doing something like that? Right now it's just kind of squeezing more than anything on the lower time frames. Crow. So Crow, perfect example. Well, this is the 1 hour. But yeah, the 4-hour. This is exactly what I mean, you guys. When the bands very clearly exploded apart, right? Massive volatility incoming. And then a big 4-hourly close to the upside, showing us which way that volatility was going. Absolutely beautiful breakout call there. I wish I would have seen that. I would have longed the shit out of that. Solana still holding my 5-minute trend here. 4-hour. I want to see what the Bollinger Bands are doing here. I am even going to remove everything just to clean things up. So it does look like our bands are getting bigger. I wish that they were way more aggressively splitting apart. But it does look like it's trying to point us to the upside. Let's see if the daily gives anything. The daily, we actually got a daily close above the Bollinger Band there. Don't get me wrong, that's nice, but they aren't really spreading apart the way like I just showed with Crow, for example. The way Crow did it, that's what Troll looked like as well. I actually pointed that out when it was happening on Troll as well. It was the daily, I believe. Yeah, same thing, right? They just absolutely exploded apart from each other. And then we got that big daily close above, and look what that did. Like, that's such a beautiful breakout call right there. So that's an interesting strategy using the Bollinger Bands, you guys. Can be a great sign of volatility incoming like that. So, yeah, I am going to be looking for that one on Mask, that's for sure. Actually even already had one, and we did get a nice little move off that guy. But I want to see another one. Yeah, 80% pump off that one. Got the daily close as they spread apart like that. 80% to the upside. Little pullback. I would love to see that happen again. Let's see if Bitcoin's got one. Bitcoin on the 4-hour. Let's remove some drawings, remove some indicators. I don't have it on that chart, so let's go to this one. Let's go to the daily, bring up the Bollinger Bands, turn off some other indicators. Here we go. So it does look to be hugging the downside, if anything. They're not really spreading apart too aggressively, though. And as well, it doesn't look like there was any confident candle bodies closing below other than back here, I guess. But it very quickly reversed. Not a very clear sign at this point. It's the 4 hour. Yeah, not really spreading apart too aggressively yet. But yeah, that's one to watch for the next couple days. I have a feeling there's going to be some volatility picking up either this weekend or early next week. But we'll have to see. Ethereum, do we have one of those by chance? Well, we probably already did, to be honest. We've actually seen it happen a few times. Bands split apart, daily close above, boom, breakout. Bands spread apart, daily close above, boom, breakout. Spread apart, close above, breakout. Currently just squeezing more than anything on Ethereum, so again, something to watch for. I haven't really done the Bollinger Bands. I haven't tested that much on the lower time frames. I've been more so just watching for that on the 4 hour and the daily for bigger breakouts, and then kind of trading the 5 minute depending on how that's going, basically. But I should start watching that on lower time frames a little bit more. Like right now, for example, it looks like we're trying to break to the upside. The bands look like they're about to start spreading apart. Let's see if that goes anywhere. Trendmaster's still holding as support. Yeah, guys, like I said, Solana has been my favorite trading coin right now just because I feel so confident that it is heading towards that 250 US dollar level. Just been kind of playing the trend of the 5 minute on this thing, and the Trendmaster's just been making it fairly easy. Higher sell, higher buy, higher sell, higher buy, higher sell, higher buy, higher sell, higher buy. Just a beautiful trend outlined by the indicator. And as soon as we start printing lower sell signals, I'm going to be hands off for a little bit. Might hedge a short next time. We'll see. It really depends how much attention I'm paying to the markets, if I'm actually at my computer, if I'm actually watching the charts at all. But I would definitely be looking at taking some profits off of a long if I got a lower sell signal. That's a big warning to me. Like I said, indicators aren't always about finding new entries. They're also about helping you in current positions. I mean, just look at this, right? As we print those higher buy signals, retesting that trend, like, yeah, sure, the higher buy signal happened way up here, but so often you come back down, test this level, look at that beautiful entry. Same with here. I mean, we get another higher buy signal. Look how close we were trading to this trend all the way up, how many times we retested it for nice little moves. And yeah, obviously they reverse very quickly too. This is only a 5 minute chart, but those are very beautiful scalping type positions like that. That can really help your scalping game. Or again, if you're looking, just depends what you're trading, because market structure generally works the same, right? It doesn't matter if you're looking at the 1 minute, the 5 minute, the 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, weekly. It really depends what you want to trade. Just obviously the longer time frames. For me, for example, the shorter time frames, the higher the leverage and the quicker you're downsizing your positions. Longer time frames, the longer you can let things run, but the lower leverage that I would use, and the longer everything takes to play out. But the market structure itself generally works the same. I still use indicators just the same and all that, you guys. So it really depends if you're a scalper or a swing trader. But all in all, market structure is still number one for me. You know, playing the trend of higher highs, higher lows, or lower lows, lower highs. But then also using indicators as confluence after that, right? But yeah, even if we, let's say that at this point, we end up getting, let's say, another sell signal, a higher sell signal, that would be a sign to me that I could pull a fib from where was our last pivot between the two, right? Our last sell and buy. This was our low between. So if we end up trending a little bit higher, get a sell signal, for example, I would just kind of pull my fib with the price right now. So it's currently sitting something like this. If we go a little bit higher, my range will just get a little bigger. But since this is still a trend of higher buy signals, you know, I would still be interested in being bullish as long as we don't lose our previous or our most recent higher buy signal. And I'm just treating the lowest point between the sell and the buy, basically. But yeah, that's a way I've been using the Trend Master for a long time, you guys. Anyways, legends, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So hopefully you guys did find the stream useful or entertaining, or hopefully I said something that helps something click with your final piece of the puzzle or whatever. Thank you all so much for being here with me once again. Love doing these streams with you guys, talking through my emotions, talking through what I see. It really helps me able to stick to a plan more so, treating it honestly like a bit of a trading journal. So I love doing these with you guys. So thank you for being here with me. And also, for those of you who are watching this on my YouTube channel a little later, if you want access to the MDX algo indicators that I use each and every day, there's a 10% discount in the link on the link in the description down below. As well, there is a link to trade no KYC on BloFin, where I do most of my trading, which also grants access to my private Telegram, where I just share more of my thoughts on the market in general. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.